for joining us today for our webinar, Best Practices for Production BOMs in Dynamics 365 Business Central. My name is Katie, and I will be the facilitator today. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question area in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll answer questions at the end. This session will be recorded and posted on our blog, as well as shared with you early next week. Now, I would like to introduce our presenter today, Ali Dervesh, Senior Solution Specialist in Dynamics 365 Business Central here at Encore. Ali, I'll pass it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Katie. Well, hello, everyone. As Katie said, my name is Ali Dervesh. I'm a Senior Solution Specialist here at Encore. My experience is with NAV and now BC implementations, going on about 8-9 years now, particularly with regards to manufacturing. I have quite a few implementations in a variety of industries relating to manufacturing. So today, I just wanted to share with everybody some of the best practices for production BOMs within Business Central. So here's our agenda. Today, we are going to go through what we would do in a scenario where we had to swap out a BOM component, and what are the different ways we could do that. So we could use versions, we could use the date fields on the same BOM. So we'll look at both of those scenarios, and we'll kind of talk about when you'd want to use one versus the other. We'll also look at some of the special BOM functions that are built into Business Central to give you visibility. If you do have any questions, you can submit them through the Q&A section on the webinar, and there will be a section at the end for Q&A, and we can answer your questions then. So with that, we can get started in the demo. So I'm going to flip over to my Business Central. So I do have this Business Central Contosa Electronics Cronus USA demo environment set up. And so for those of you who are familiar with Business Central, this will look very familiar. So first, I'm going to look at some of my items. So just to show the example that we're going to walk through today. So the example that we have set up is that of a coffee machine, a coffee maker. So if I scroll down here and I show my auto drip, so you can see here this is, in fact, the item we're going to be looking through today. So within this item, we have of course, production BOM and a routing. So we can see here we have a routing and a production BOM. And then we also have a multi-level BOM. So within this production BOM, we have these various items in various arrays going to be part of the finished good. So just to give you an idea of what we're looking at context-wise. So now if I go to my production BOMs, so here we're going to see the production BOM that we looked at earlier. So we have our actual air pot here. And so this is going to have everything that we need to assemble one of those finished goods. So we can see at a glance, we have, of course, our description, unit of measure, status certified, and then we have our actual bill of material here. So I'm going to look at this reservoir example. So we see within here we have reservoir assembly is this item, BOM 2000. That in and of itself is an assembled item and has a bill of material assigned to it. So it's a multi-level BOM. So in this scenario, let's just say, for instance, this heating element we found to have some sort of issue. So we actually wanted to swap this out for a new item. So there's a couple ways we could do that. Number one is we can use versions. So as the name suggests, we can track multiple versions and multiple iterations of a production BOM over time. So every time that there was a change, we can create a new version. The other way we could do that is we can use what we call starting and ending dates on the production BOM lines itself. So the first thing we'll look at is actually creating a version. So to do that, first of all, to make any changes to a production BOM, if you're going to make changes to the lines, you always have to change the status from certified to under development. So since I'll be changing those dates on the lines later, I'm going to go ahead and do that. But to begin with, I'm going to show how to create a version. So let's say we want to change this heating element to a different item. So I'm going to go into versions, And then very simply, I'm going to hit new. And so the first thing is we'll assign it a version code. We'll give it a description and then a unit of measure. So it's going to be the same things as what we would do on the header, essentially. And then we can do a starting date. So Business Central will track what is the active version based on the starting date, as well as if you don't have starting dates, then just the version, whatever is the latest one. But best practice is if you're going to do that to use starting dates. So in this case, I'm going to say starting on 8/1. Now, rather than actually filling in all of this again myself, because I'm just making one change, I'm going to use this copy BOM function. So what that's saying is, do you want to copy all the lines from the BOM itself? I will hit yes, and then hit F5 on my keyboard to refresh. And there are my BOM lines. So now if I wanted to add another line, I could do so. And I'll make it an item. And I'll make it my new heating element. Quantity per is also going to be 1. And then I can remove this guy, the old heating element. And so now at this point, my status is in new when I created it. The statuses are going to be identical to those of the actual production BOM itself. So starting in new, and then I will need to certify it. If you do not certify it, you will not be able to use it. So it's important to make sure to certify it once all the changes are complete. And if you don't and you try to exit, it will actually give you a little prompt saying, are you sure you want to leave? You haven't certified it. So always make sure to do that. The other option is if I'm coming back in the future and I want to make a change to it after it's no longer new, then under development, like I said, on the main production BOM, same thing here for a version. Okay, so now we can go back. So now I can see in my list of versions, I have my Rev A here and my starting date of 8/1. And so now you'll notice on the production BOM itself, it now says that my active version is version 8. So that's my indication to me that we have versions in use and that this is the current one based on the dates, based on everything. This is the one that's going to be used right now. So if I were to go out and create a production order right now, it would use this production BOM version. Now, if I wanted to create another iterative version, I can do so. And this time I'll call it version code B. I'll give it the same unit of measure. And this time I can do the copy BOM version function. So rather than copying from the main production BOM, I can copy from another version. So in this case, I'll copy from Rev 8. And so there again, we see all the lines populated based on that. And in this case, I'll say, we did some testing and we found that we actually need 3 water tubing pieces per. So we're going to go ahead and just change that to 3. And then again, same thing. I'm going to give it a starting date now of 9/1. Remember the other one was 8/1, and I will certify it. So now if I go back, I can see I have my Rev B with a start date of 9/1. And there again on my main production BOM, I'm seeing that now my active version is version B. So the neat thing about that is you can plan future changes and have them come into effect on the date that you want. So if I had another production BOM that I wanted to go into effect on October 1st, I could do so by simply creating that version the exact same way we did, making my changes, changing that starting date to 10/1 and certifying it. And then as soon as the clock ticks 10/1, the system will then use that as the active version. So in that way, we can plan ahead and make any changes desired ahead of time rather than having to do it on the day of. So that's a really neat feature to be able to use. Now, one thing to note, any changes that we made to the versions live only in those versions. What we're seeing here, this is the original bill of material. So sometimes folks get confused when they see this and they think this is the active version B. This is not. So the way to get around that is sometimes people, if they're going to use versions, then they only use versions, they simply delete all the lines here, so it looks blank, so they don't accidentally think that this is in fact active version B, and then they're forced to go in and actually look at the active version and see active version B. So just one thing to note. So once I make my changes, then I would certify it. Now in this case with the version, I don't have to go under development, but if I'm going to make changes to the actual BOM itself. So that's one way to handle it. We do have our versions. The other way we can handle it as well is we do have starting and ending dates on the actual bill of material lines itself. So by default, this is how it looks out of the box. We have type, number, description, quantity per, etc. However, I do have the option of personalizing my page, and there are a number of fields that are not necessarily immediately visible that I can add to my page. So we can see here we have different things, calculation formula, ending date, etc. But the ones that I'm looking for are starting date. I'm just going to drag that in, and ending date. And so very much like the starting date on my BOM versions, these fields will allow me to dictate when components will be used and then when they can be phased out. So in this case, I'm going to set this to under development, and we'll just pretend we don't have any active versions at the moment. So if we did in fact want to do this, we would have to make sure that we were not using versions, because whatever changes we made here would not be in effect. It would use whatever the version is, but we'll pretend that there's no versions. So in this case, this heating element, like I said, we're no longer going to use this. This we found to be defective, and we had some problems, and customers called us and complained. So the root cause analysis was, we said this is the issue. So we are going to phase that out as of 8/31. So I'm going to simply put that as my ending date. And then I can come down here and very simply put my new heating element and put a starting date. So now my starting date will be 9/1. And so in effect, it's almost the same thing as if I had created a new version, in that this component will stop being used on 8/31 and this one will start being used on 9/1. But I haven't actually created a different version. It all lives within the same production BOM. So once I've made my changes, I can certify and I'm good to go. So two different ways to do the same thing. You may ask, which one is right for me? Should I be using versions, or should I make changes here? So that's going to be kind of a business decision. The difference is over time, technically, this item can now be deleted because it's, as of 8/31, it's no longer needed. And then this would be the one going forward. The difference is, if in the future I wanted to look and see what changes were made over time, I won't have that visibility because this item has been deleted. I can go back and look at my finished production orders to see what was used on an individual order, but I won't be able to see at a glance what changes were made to this production amount over time. So for that reason, we can use versions to go back and say, okay, yes, around 8/1, this is when we started doing this. Around 9/1, that's when we started doing this. So that's where the advantage of versions comes in. Okay. So that is, in effect, like we talked about, swapping a component in a scenario where you had to do so. Two different ways to do so. Now, there is another way to do this. This is something that Business Central has added more recently. It's a way to automate that. So let's say, in this case, we just did this for one BOM. It wasn't that hard, right? It was just one item for one BOM. We were able to go in, set it to under development, make our change, and set it to certified. No big deal, right? Now, what if we have hundreds of BOMs that have that item? Then what? Then do we have to go in and do it for every single one? Well, in the past you may have had to, but now, handily, Microsoft does have this new function called exchange production BOM item. So now we're going to get into our special BOM functions we talked about in our agenda. So with this function, this allows you to exchange a production BOM item on the lines in an automated way without having to go in, change every single one to under development, and then certify it again. So in this example, let's say I want to change out this item SPBOM 1305. So in this case, it's just a screw, a very simple example. Again, let's just say that this is, for whatever reason, a defective item. It's a hex head M3 zinc screw. Let's say previously it was not zinc coated. It was starting to corrode. We want to change it out. So let's just pretend this is the raw metal one without the zinc coating. And then we're going to change that to our new item which has zinc coating, right? So very simply, we can exchange this with this. And also note, you can do it for production BOMs as well. It doesn't just have to be for items. So if you have that multi-level BOM, you can certainly do that as well. The neat thing also is it has the ability to create a new version. So if I wanted to actually use those versions and then just create the next version, I can do so here. I just have to make sure that I have a number series set up for those versions on that BOM so that it knows what number to use. I also have the ability to make changes to the quantity per. So if it's just 1-to-1, I would leave that with 1. But if now instead of 1 screw, I need 2 screws, I can change that to 2. I would also input a starting date. So in this case, let's just say 9/1. And then I can finally say, do I want to recertify it afterwards? Yes, I'd want to do that. And then finally, do I want to continue to copy the routing link? So if in fact you are using routing links to auto-consume the material with the routing, then you can use that as well, which again, I would leave that on. So in this case, I'm going to not create a new version. I'm just going to swap it out on the existing bill of material and hit OK. So when I do that, it does all that in the background. It does it in the flash of a second. I don't have to go into every single bill of material and do it. So now, if I look at this auto drip assembly, this is where this item was used. I can see that I have my new item here. So it added this new item. The quantity per is the same as before. And the start date is 9/1. And it also has the end date of 8/31 on this one. So now we can phase that item out and start using this one. Again, same thing as what we had done manually, just in an automated fashion. So very handy function if, like I said, you have hundreds and hundreds of BOMs, you have very complicated multi-level BOMs. The odds of, first of all, just the amount of time having to do that, but then also the odds of missing something are great. But with this function, you no longer have to worry about that. Okay, another neat function, a special BOM function, is the production BOM version comparison. So I have this BOM here, and we can see here I have different versions, just like I did in the other example. I want to know what the changes were between those various versions. So very simply, either from the production BOM page itself, from here, or from the actual production BOM, I have this production BOM version comparison. So very simply, I can see what the differences are at a glance between all of these versions. So first and foremost, I have the actual base bill of material here itself. And then I have various versions. So I can see from this comparison that we made changes to the water tubing. So with the original one, we had 2, then we upped it to 3, and then we upped it to 4. So again, a really handy function to be able to look at this and see that visibility. The other thing too is you can look at the multi-level BOMs. So in this case, this is a one-level BOM, but in the example of my main auto drip, this guy, now I'm not actually using version from this one, but you can see with the multi-level, I can drill down into that multi-level. You can see the difference. When I have single, it just gives me what I would see on the BOM. But then when I go to multi, you can see that kind of expanded out, an explosion of the BOM, if you will. All right. And finally, the other function I want to look at is the where used function. So with where used, again, it's a very handy function. It's in different areas of the system, but certainly it's useful here. So it's in a couple different areas, even within the bill of material. So we can see here under lines, I can say where used. And so very simply, this is going to tell me where was this production BOM used. So in this case, it's very simple. I just have it here. It's being used in this item with version code B. But if, for instance, I had, let's say, if I were to go back and look at that screw, that's likely going to be used in a lot of different areas. So, well, you get the idea. But basically, if you want to look and see where something is being used, it's handy to see what bills of material an item is being used on. And there again, you can do the multi-level BOM to kind of get that deeper dive into what constitutes that item. You can also do an as of date. So if you're dealing with versions and you want to look at dates and backdate or forward date, you can do so as well. And then finally, there's a couple things you can do special BOM functions from the item itself. So now if I go back to items, and in this case, I am going to look at my auto drip like we looked at earlier. Okay, so it's a little buried here. It's under related bills of materials. So first of all, we have a couple of things here under production. So I can go directly to the production BOM. I can go to the active BOM version. Again, I have that where used function. And then I have the ability to calculate standard costs to roll up the cost of the various components to get a standard cost for this item. But the things I want to look at here are going to be our structure. So this is really neat to be able to see a exploded view of the bill of material. So in this case, especially if it's a multi-level BOM, right? So we can see here we have a BOM within a BOM. So we have a reservoir. I can expand that. I can compress it. And it's going to give me a quantity per parent. So in other words, if this were 2 per, but then within this BOM, this was 3 per, then this would be 6, right? Because then the 2 per times 6, 2 times 3 would be 6. So it really gives me the visibility into what makes up this BOM structure. And the other thing as well is I can see my replenishment system. So I can see if this is a production or purchase item or even transfer. So it's really nice to be able to see what makes up this bill of material, and you can see my labor steps here with my work centers and my machine centers. So again, really visible, really powerful tool to see visibility into what makes up this item. And then finally, we have under bills of material, our cost shares. So again, this is going to come back to if we want to use that roll-up function to come up with a standard cost for this item, the system has that ability to do so, and this is that visibility into it. So again, it's going to be similar to what we were looking at earlier, but in this case now we can see our costs. And it's going to be broken down by material, capacity, subcontracting if we're using it, overhead, etc., scrap if we're using scrap. So we can really see that visibility and see where exactly are the costs coming from that derives that total cost. So again, if you're starting to do standard costing, this is a very powerful tool. And with that, we have 5 minutes left. So I wanted to give the opportunity for questions. So, Katie, do we have any questions?
We have a couple, but I just want to remind everyone, if you do have any questions, please enter them into the question area in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. The first one I have here is, sometimes I don't see an item show up in the where used function, even when the BOM is certified. Is there something I need to do to enable it to work with this feature?
Yes. So we kind of ran into that earlier with the example I was trying to show when you didn't see anything on the where used. So the key with where used on production BOMs is it's only going to show you things that are actually assigned to an item and are active and certified. So for instance, if I have an item that is not assigned to an item, sorry, a bill of material that's not assigned to an item. So let's say this reservoir and this one are essentially identical. But when I use that where used, I'm only seeing on the 2005. So if I look at my water tubing, I only see it under 2000 version B. But we just saw it was on version 2005 as well, right? So why isn't it showing up there? It's because this BOM 2000 was assigned to an item and this one is not. So the system knows that this one was not assigned to an item and therefore it would not show it in the where used. So now, just real quickly for the sake of example, if I go to this item, reservoir assembly, and just real quick, I'm going to create a copy here. I'll give it a new item number. Oh, we already have that item. Let's try that. Okay, so we created this item. Now I'm going to come down here to the production BOM number, and now I'm going to change it on this new item to reservoir assembly 2. And so now if I go back to our production BOMs, I'm going to drill into this guy again. And again, same thing. We're in the same place, right? Water tubing, we're used, now it shows up, right? So again, the reason it does that is because it only wants to show you what is actively being used. In a scenario where you have a whole bunch of different BOMs out there, some companies, they keep track of all their different BOMs, even if they're not being assigned to an item. It doesn't want to give you all that noise. So this is strictly the things that are going to be assigned to the item. And there again, I can go into the multi-level and see that. Okay. Any other questions?
We do have one more, and we have a minute left, so I will ask, is there any harm in leaving old components with expired dates in the BOM lines?
Yes. The answer to that is no. There is no harm in leaving them there. The only thing is if you're going to continue to use the starting and ending date over time, it may get kind of cluttered. You may see a lot of things in there that are not relevant, in which case there is another function you can use, which is delete expired components. So very simply, you just select the date that you want to delete them before. You can filter it down if you need, and then you hit OK, and then it's going to delete all those other items. Again, similar to the other function we looked at, just to get rid of them and clean it up. All right. I think we're coming up to time.
Yes, we are at time for today. If anyone does have any questions that we have not answered, we will get back to you by email later today. I went ahead and added the link to our events page in the chat if you'd like to check out previous webinars or register for upcoming sessions. I will also be adding a link where you can set your email preferences and opt into our email so you can stay in the know about all upcoming events as well as see latest blog articles. Thank you, Ollie, for the information today, and thank you everyone for joining us. Enjoy the
All
rest
right.
of your day.
Thanks.